Alright, let me start off by asking you this. What is the first thing you should do when starting a Bedwars game? If your answer was anything other than put down a bed defense, then you're probably one of the very few brave souls who like to rush without covering their bed. And if that's you, I respect that, but you're probably not going to be watching a video on Bedwars basics. So speaking of basic, the most basic bed defense is just going to be one layer of wool. So when we talk about layers, it's pretty much, this is the first layer, right? This is the most basic bed defense. I want to say 99% of Bedwars players use it. It's effective. It's only 8 wool and it lets you start your rush pretty much ASAP. So this is like my go-to bed defense. So now you might be wondering, Konsuya, what if my first rush looks really scary? What if wool doesn't seem good enough to defend against some god-bridging monster? So to combat that, we're going to do something called the hot dog bed defense. Okay, for the hot dog bed defense, which you'll see why it's called hot dog in a second, but you're going to go ahead and place 2 blocks behind, 2 blocks in front, and then you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So that'll use all the wood with one purchase from the shop. And you're going to go ahead and cover up the middle section with wool. And this is pretty much it. As you can see, it kind of looks like an upside down hot dog. So there are a few variations when it comes to the hot dog defense in regards to where you're going to put your wood. You can copy your favorite Bedwars player and do it however they do it. But the one I showed you is pretty much the most basic hot dog bed defense. But one variation I like to use, you would go ahead and place 1 block here. Can't reach. 1, 2, 3 blocks in front. And then you're going to pretty much do the exact same thing as before. You're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 on the side, 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally 1, 2, 3, 4. From here, you can go ahead and cover the middle section with wool. And as you can see, it looks pretty much identical, right? Identical to the very first version. But the thing about this bed defense is normally if someone kills you, you're going to respawn here, right? So they're going to try to mine from the farthest section from you, which would be the front. So if they try to go from the front, say they don't have an axe, they'll get 1 block and they're like, oh man, I can get the bed right here, right? Wrong. They'll have to go through an extra piece of wood to get to the bed defense. Now you might be asking, what if they go from back here? I mean, it's 1 block. This whole bed defense is kind of meant to be a tricky bed defense. It doesn't always work. This is the caveat that comes with having a trick bed defense, but it works sometimes. And I mean, you could test it out yourself and see how often people get tricked. Okay, so there's one other bed defense that might be worthwhile for you to do, and that's pretty much just obsidian. If you get 8 M's from mid, you can buy 8 obsidian, and like I said before, that's enough for 1 layer of bed defense. So obby is really, really good when the opponent least expects it. So you're not going to want to ever just leave it be like this. You always want to try to give it 1 extra layer of wool. Let me just take that out. From here, it just looks like 2 layers of wool, right? You're not going to really know until you break it open. So usually with obby, you're going to also want to get a miner fatigue trap, which may or may not be the best trap to get. But miner fatigue plus obby would give you plenty of time to void and potentially fight off the person trying to get to your bed. Now you might be wondering, what about clay, endstone, and glass? To be honest, in solos and doubles, they aren't really worth your time. Endstone and glass can be really good in team modes, and clay kind of just never is worth it. I'd rather just buy wood or blocks or endstone, because I think clay costs iron, so I would just buy endstone if I wanted to. And one last thing when it comes to having a bed defense, I would try to keep it at a max to 3 layers, because if it's too big, the opponent can kind of just burrow down and then they'll block themselves in like so. Obviously their bed defense will be way bigger, but if your bed defense is too big and your opponent gets inside, you're pretty much going to lose your bed. That's pretty much it for bed defense tips. Alright, for the next topic, I'm going to be talking about bridging. So say you're on Speedway, right? You want to get your first rush in, which would be yellow team right over there if you're Aqua. You could just you know, go from here all the way to those diamonds and just have a flat bridge. But if you were to do that, yellow team would be able to just run straight across your bridge, and you don't want that. You do not want that. So what you want to do is, if you're going to bridge, you want to go up every few blocks. It doesn't have to be every third block like I'm doing here. You can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't matter. You just want to be able to get up, because then your enemy can't just run across your bridge. And another big advantage that comes with building up is that you can drop down onto your enemy. So say yellow team's down there, they're looking straight up at me, right? You can drop down onto yellow, but yellow can't just jump up straight up to you. So having height is very, very advantageous, but you don't want to build like super high, because then you'll take a bunch of fall damage and either get like one tapped or just die from fall damage straight up. But building a few blocks high is always a good idea. Okay, so you saw a little preview in my last tip, but for this next one, we're going to talk about speed bridging. Now, there's plenty of comprehensive guides to all types of speed bridging, but I'm just going to show you the very literal bare bones version of speed bridging. So this is going to be for you who have never ever speed bridged before in your life. I'm going to make it real easy for you here. So you're going to come back to a block, right? You're going to hold the S key, so that way you're not really sliding around as much. So you don't want to be like this, and you don't want to be like this, but you want to make sure you're right here. So there's 3 magic words: click, unshift, shift. You want to click your right mouse button. You're going to unshift, and you're going to be holding your S button this entire time. So while you're moving back, you're going to shift again, and then click, unshift, shift. Click, unshift, shift. Right? It happens pretty fast. It's going to take some pinky muscle to get used to it. As long as you keep practicing it and keep trying, you'll pick it up eventually. For those of you that already know like the basics of speed bridging, you're going to want to aim diagonally. So that way, if you're holding S and D, if you're facing this way, or S and A if you're facing this way, that's just personal preference. It's the exact same motion. It's click, unshift, shift. You just move a little faster when you're facing diagonally like this. So every so often, you might need to bridge diagonally, right? On Speedway, you don't really bridge diagonally too often, but some other maps you do more than others. So in that case, you're gonna come to the corner of the block, right? You're gonna kind of line up. It doesn't have to be exact, but you're gonna kind of either pick left or right. I like the right side. Again, this is personal preference. A lot of this is personal preference. But you're gonna click twice and then unshift and shift like this. Twice, unshift, shift. Twice, unshift, shift. So it's a little bit different in that you have to click twice in succession, but I'm sure you can get the hang of it. Okay, so for putting these two things together, we're going up and we're speed bridging, right? So this takes a little bit of muscle memory and focus when you first start, but then eventually it'll just become habit. But when you're bridging, you just speed bridge and jump every so often. This is what I do. Other people, like, sometimes they'll go up and then they'll just bridge really far. It's all what works for you. But remember, getting high ground is important, and getting to the islands faster than other people by speed bridging is also important. Alright, so for the last topic of the video, I want to go over priorities. So let's say I've taken out gray. Some people's priority might be to continue on their rushing and go to red. But personally, I would go get some diamonds, because upgrades are huge in Bedwars. Whether it's early game, late game, or just at any point, having diamond upgrades can mean winning, losing, winning a fight, losing a fight, whatever, right? Now, when you grab diamonds for the first time, there's a few things you can buy. If you get one diamond, which usually won't be the case, to get one singular diamond as your first time going to the generator, I'd get a trap. It doesn't really matter too much which one, but minor fatigue is pretty high consensus top pick for a trap. If you get 2, usually I'll get prot. 3, you can get prot and a trap. And 4, it depends on your playstyle, but it's another safe bet to get prot and a trap and just save your last diamond. Or you can get sharp. sharpened swords, which is also it's a really nice upgrade. So in general, try to keep up with diamond upgrades. You don't really need forge, heal pool, or dragon buff. I would just focus on protection and sharp. Even if you have the diamonds, just put them in your ender chest. Save them for next time, save them until you get more, because those other upgrades really aren't necessary at all. The others are much more important to just overall success in Bedwars. So once you have diamonds, there's a few things you can do. You can continue rushing. So if I'm at gray, I can just keep going towards red. Or I can go mid and collect M's. It kind of depends on your playstyle. Grabbing M's would be safer than trying to rush another team, because usually they might be either occupied with their first rush, or they might not even be thinking of rushing you yet. But it all depends on your playstyle. What you don't want to do is just sit in the gen. You never want to just collect resources unless you really need to, because while you're waiting in gen, other people will be bridging to mid, other people will be bridging to your base. You always want to be doing something. Alright, so you've made it to mid, you're collecting M's. What do you want to do with those M's? Luckily in Bedwars, it's not a very PvP focused game, right? So you kind of only need to know how to click and maybe aim, because with the resources that you can get with emeralds, gold and diamonds and iron, there's so many other things to do other than just fight head on. You can get a bunch of pots. You can just pot up with invis, jump, and speed boost, and you can just run over to someone's base, take their bed, and they won't even know. You can also buy an ender pearl, and that eliminates the need to even run over. You can just chuck an ender pearl over and you'll be at their base instantly. It all depends on your playstyle. I mean, personally, I'll go pots first, but it's whatever you want. You can also buy diamond armor if you really want to. I wouldn't buy a diamond sword unless you're a final, because once you die with a diamond sword, or any sword in general, you lose it. But armor you'll respawn with, so honestly diamond armor isn't the worst thing to spend your emeralds on. Punch bows are objectively the worst thing to buy with your emeralds. Okay, so let's say you've joined your game, right? Maybe you've taken your first rush out by this point, but maybe in lobby you notice that someone had either MVP plus rank or an MVP plus plus rank, which is like light blue or orange, or they have, I don't know, 200-300 stars, whatever. They're probably going to be the biggest threat of the game. And in my opinion, you always want to go after the biggest threat. Even if, say, you took out gray and maybe red's right there, their bed's open. If they're not the biggest threat in the game, say maybe yellow is, I wouldn't go for red at the moment. I'd try to take out yellow as fast as possible. But it's just kind of a general rule of thumb. There's not necessarily any guarantee that someone with a rank or someone with high stars is going to be very good. It just means that they probably know what they're doing. And if you know what you're doing in Bedwars, you're already much better than the average player. And obviously, if you see someone coming towards you, say white was bridging towards me, you don't want to just leave and try to take out who you think is the biggest threat. At the very moment, white would be your biggest threat. You want to protect your bed from white, potentially get their bed, and then you can try to get whoever you think is the next biggest threat. Alright, so that's going to do it for some very basic tips for, someone who knows what Bedwars is but kind of wants to get better at the game. I suggest just watching your favorite YouTuber, watching your favorite live streamers. Try to emulate what they do, because chances are if they're successful, then copying what they do can help you be successful. So make sure to ask any questions in the comments, or suggest any other ideas, feedback. I'd love to hear them. Maybe one day I can do a little more advanced tips for someone who's been playing Bedwars for a little longer than maybe just a few weeks. But yeah, so if you like this, be sure to like and subscribe. This isn't a normal Bedwars video that I do. I just thought I'd help some of my friends out with some really easy tips that they could implement into their Bedwars journey. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time.